This is day 3 of the June 92 7-day retreat at Springwater. I've written down a few more questions or comments. I am working so much, doing so much, that everything really has to be planned down to the minute in my daily life. And then I get so exhausted that I stay in bed Sunday mornings. How can I tell what is compulsion in this and what is really necessary to be done? Meaning, with all the expenses of my life, bills, and a growing child. When I find moments in which there is nothing to do, I notice a growing discomfort with this nothing. It doesn't feel good, and the mind immediately looks for something new to do and to be occupied with, to use up the energy that is there. Someone before retreat spoke about the possibility of using this emptiness for just looking inward. I don't remember verbatim how this was put. It was put very well. I don't recall it. Someone suggested, could this energy maybe be used for looking inward? And how we shy away from this or ignore it altogether. I want to explore in this retreat why there is this resistance and lethargy in me of not wanting to do anything. Not just here, but also at home, in my daily life. Someone talked, just made one word, I wrote one word down, namely gossip. I have to recall what the person said. Something like, when there are some free moments in my very busy daily life, me and my colleagues get together and we usually gossip about others. Sometimes in an informative way, what is happening to so-and-so and going on with him. But very often it's critical, putting others down. And even though I see it's going on, and don't like it, it doesn't stop, it keeps on going. The person was wondering about this. Why, if something is seen, does it go on? Does it continue? This happened all in a group meeting. Another question was, why are we so afraid to be close to one another? Really vulnerable with each other in exposing what is going on within ourselves, going on for us. We yearn for closeness, and yet we fear it. Often we are embarrassed when we don't know what to do, what to say in the company of others. Why this embarrassment? Sometimes when I hear you talk about the self and how we are not really different from one another, I get the feeling as though you were saying we're all just walking robots. Aren't all of us really unique? I don't ever hear you use the concept of karma. What about things that you have done in the past and their consequences? This is a question coming out of several people asking similar questions. I always feel some guilt that I'm not doing enough for others who are so much worse off than I am. What can I do? Or am I just trying to alleviate guilt feelings which are in a way another selfish motive? What can I do? Or am I just trying to alleviate guilt, which in a way is just another selfish motive? It happened in England recently on a trip there, doing a couple of retreats, that I began to respond to each question as it was read. It's so hard to figure out where to enter, where to start. But there's enough in the first cluster of questions. And that was, I'm so busy. I have no time for myself. It comes right down to the minute in my daily life. What to do next. I make myself long lists at home and at the office, holding several jobs. And then on Sunday mornings I collapse from exhaustion. And another person saying, when there come times in which there's nothing to do, just finished one job and haven't thought of another one yet, it feels discomforting. Something doesn't feel good about not having anything to do. And I notice how the mind is trying to grasp something new to do, to get occupied with. Because there's energy now, and that energy beckons to be used up. And then the same person said before retreat, somebody said, why not use that energy to look inward? Could that be a possible use? And then a third person saying, why is there so much lethargy in my life, such resistance to doing anything? I find myself sitting around, not doing anything, resisting whatever thought brings up ought to be done, or somebody else brings up that ought to be done. So what's going on here? Most of us know the pressure of overwork, overcommitment. If it isn't in the work one needs to do to pay one's bills, it is committing oneself to do social work or humanitarian work, to alleviate guilt feelings about not doing anything for others who are worse off. Then of course there are children with their, it seems at times, unceasing demands the older they grow. Also already getting into the vortex of commitments and lessons and clubs and activities, needing to be chauffeured around, taken here and there. And then friends and entertainment, and never a minute, never a moment for what we say, a moment for myself. I noticed a similar state coming back from a long trip recently. There were less than 2 weeks left before a new retreat here. All the borders around the house were overgrown with weeds in such a healthy way. It was incredible. The thickness of one sisal was like a tree planted 3 years ago. The beauty of it, and yet it was overcrowding and shadowing out, and the roots all over other shrubs which had been put there very carefully. by the former owner. And then some vines growing so elaborately over the shrubs that you wouldn't even see that there were shrubs underneath. Sort of carefully clinging around certain branches of the shrubs. Plants have time to do all of that. I was sort of pulling at this little morning glory to get it off, and I wonder, what am I doing? Why not see how it has gone around and then just go the other way around? And as the weeds receded, some beautiful shrubs emerged, and beautiful ground crumbling, to just feel it crumbling it off the roots of the weeds as the ground came out with the roots. I just quickly shake it or push them over because I've got to get done with this. To begin to do more carefully and lovingly and appreciatively of what was happening. I don't think it took that much more time than this hectic trying to get something done, through with it in order to do the next thing. And because if the mind thinks of the next thing, it's endless. For some of us, or most of us, what all needs to be done. A desk full of letters, bags still full of clothes, or laundry bags full of dirty laundry to be washed, hung out. Calls on the telephone of family coming to visit, having to call back, you know it. And only a short time during the day for taking a walk because of all of the other things that needed to be done before coming back here. And yet realizing there was a different way of creating time. And this different way of creating time and space for oneself. I don't put it that way, but it's always put this way, so I'll join in for the moment. A different way of creating time and space is to work with no time pressuring, but to look each moment at the hands moving and whatever is moving with us. The soils, the worms, the birds, the clouds. Husband mowing in the distance and that sound. Moving quietly with everything, attentively, openly. And not thinking of the next thing because this is all there is right now and it is sufficient to be seen, done, smelled, felt, looked at. Such a freedom emerges in this way of working. And I'm not sure that it takes much longer. I didn't measure it by the clock. But certainly the body feels wholesome in this way of working. And it is getting depleted and abused and exhausted in the other way of working, trying to get things done in order to get to the next thing. The pressure of the next thing. Somebody said that here in a group meeting. I realized that anticipating something increases the pressure, which I'm trying to decrease by anticipating something. Tension and anticipation can both melt away in this moment of loosening the soil around the root of a thistle. Letting it crumble back into the hole and gathering up some more soil to fill the hole, put a new plant in or whatever, with eyes and ears and skin and body open. Open to what else is there beside my agenda. Which doesn't go away no matter how fast or slow I work, it's there. But it doesn't need to be thought about all the time. That's a very liberating discovery. And it isn't there if one hears the birds while loosening the soil, or takes in the fresh air while hanging up the clothes. It's a beautiful thing to hang up clothes. Of course, we have a marvelous field in which to do it. I wish everybody did. I could see the distant valley and the vast sky and the wind just moving the socks and towels back and forth. So what about this other question? We have gotten so used to being busy all the time, so conditioned, so programmed, and not just to keep doing, but in there is more. I'm good when I'm doing. I'm good when I'm busy. We were told as little children, keep busy, by our parents, who would then have some break from us. Color this book, buying masses of coloring books. Crayons to stay within the lines and color. So we've learned that we're good when we're busy. Parents and adults and teachers look benignly upon us when we're doing something, and there's a certain apprehension when we're done as children with something. What is he going to get into now? So it's in our bones, in our tissue, in our bloodstream, that it's good to be doing something. What may also be in our bloodstream and bones and tissue is rebellion against that. Rebellion against having to do things all the time. Mother or father, teacher, whoever, constantly telling us what we should be doing. To keep up the work, help around the house, do the homework. One may have heard that so much that now the whole body manifests the lethargy of resistance to that. Even though one may now be in one's own house and family, the need for resisting has a tremendous weight and momentum. Is that what's going on? We all have to examine for ourselves. I can talk a little bit and give examples, but the looking is for each one of us. What is going on right now? Not just say, well, I don't know, but to question it, to turn that energy which accumulates at times inward, to listen to the tapes running, the headlines spinning, the storyline going, voices heard, commandments. Get busy, do this, do that. And no, I won't. It may be spelled out, or it may be more organismic, but the memory is there of that. So coming back to the one person who said, when there's nothing to do, I begin to feel a real discomfort, a certain anxiousness of this nothing to do. And the mind goes through files or whatever, projections, what it could do, and try to grasp onto something to do, to get out of this feeling of dis-ease with nothing to do. And the way she put it, there's always something that really makes sense that it needs to be done. It is either attractive to do or it feels so important. Maybe important. So then how, if it's really something important one had forgotten here at this moment of not having anything to do, here is this important thing coming back to mind. Will the dis-ease that was felt not be squished by doing something, but allowed to be heard, be allowed to be heard and felt, even though one may go on to do something. There's a difference between denying this or squishing it with a new activity, or realizing Something needs to be done and doing it, but not in order to squish anything that is manifesting inside. That is an open way again of doing another job. But maybe there is nothing important. Nobody needs help right now. What am I to do with this nothing to do? Have I ever examined it, listened to it, to this nothing to do, and the disease and discomfort and guilt or anxiety that begins to percolate through the system? To wonder about that. To wonder about that nothing. What is it? And not seek for answers, intellectual or experiential or whatever, but be there and feel how the body almost jerks to do something with its energy. And listening inwardly, outwardly, without knowing what to do. About the energy, about the space, about anything, not knowing what to do. The energy just gathering in not knowing. Is that possible? Energy gathering in not knowing what to do. It's not a state of giving up, that's doing something, or giving in, that's doing something. It's not even saying there's nothing to do. One doesn't know what this state is. This is what a retreat, 1 day, 2 days, or 7 days, some people go for longer than that, can offer itself for. To find out about this anxiety and compulsion to do and not to do. To sit with it, walk with it, eat with it, quietly, spaciously, openly, vulnerably, to anxiety and fear of there may be being nothing to fill what is felt like a big, deep hole inside. A hole, an empty hole. Some people say it's like a black hole there, empty, hollow inside. And our habit has been to keep filling it with activities and ideas and books and jobs and people and possessions and entertainment. And here on a sunny, cool day, in a totally freshly washed universe, what does it mean to do nothing? Bird calls are there, aren't they, in the coolness of the air, the sun. Hands touching lightly, knees touching the mat or chair. There's breathing going on. Is there? Is there breathing going on? Can one hear the heart beating? One person told me, you always talk about the heart beating. I never hear anything. Don't hear my heart beating. All right, then. I said, don't think you ought to hear your heart beating. Whatever's there, there's so much. But we ignore it all the time because we're so busy. There's a whole universe of quietness, of quiet, silent happenings, inside and outside of this body. And anxiety arises, or whatever we call it, can one begin to abstain from naming it, realizing for oneself that the word anxiety is not what is exactly happening right now. And if I want to be in touch with what is happening right now, because I'm wondering about this so-called nothing, then let's not call it anxiety anymore, but be in touch with whatever is moving, trickling, squirting, tensing, whatever's going on, to listen to it in a new way. And it's new when we don't know what it is. And we may be surprised that it is not what we thought it was and labeled it as being. By which I'm not saying don't label things, because labeling in most minds happens so quickly. It's there before we can even think about it. It's on the program. There's the label. But I want to know what this discomfort is right now, the anxiety, the disease. So it's quite clear that the labels that come up are not this state of being, which is, as I'm listening to it, always in flux. I can't put my hand on it. The moment I say something about it and listen again, it's already different again. So are we into this? I'm not saying this is what you should be doing. We're just entering into 3 questions by 3 participants who are speaking for all of us. Because I think every one of us recognizes ourselves in these questions. The overactivity, no time for myself, the fear of nothing to do, and the resistance against doing anything. And as we were always pointing out, there's nothing that is going on in this inner universe or in the outer universe which is not worth looking at or listening to, contacting, living fully with it, through it. That's what the word experience means, living fully through something. Not in order to get rid of it, to be done with it, to become knowledgeable about it, but because it's there, here, right now, manifesting in this body here, really beckoning to be heard and listened to and looked at and felt. Whatever we call it, resistance or anxiety or compulsion, selfishness, what is it? Put the word aside and look what it is that's going on. And sometimes it's easier when we share that, do that together. One person, another person may have some clarity and speak clearly, and that's very helpful. But we still have to look whether what is put quite clearly is really so. For myself, can I observe it, test it, is it so? That's why there's no place for authority, for just accepting what somebody says. But it can be helpful as a hint to look for myself. Or maybe I see it right away. It happens sometimes. Somebody sees something at the moment. One reads something clear, put clearly, or hears something that's put clearly. Something clicks, and there's usually a joy of discovery. There was this question, came up yesterday. Somebody just asked very simply, what is selfishness? I don't even know right now what it is. That was how it was put. And a few people during the last meetings did say, sometimes I'm afraid, it sounds scary when I hear about no self or transcending the self. When I hear you say that we're all so much alike, not so different from each other, we're all conditioned, programmed, have the same heredity, and not the same, but it comes from one pool of genes in which we all have been dipped. And it's sort of, the specter comes up as though we were just walking robots, and I don't like that specter. I don't either. The person actually said, I know you don't mean that. So what do you mean? It's a huge question. I can't go into the whole thing. It's only the third day. We have many more talks. But let's just say this. Let's not just take over words like selfishness or no self, ego. Some of these have become such catchwords, both in spiritual training and in psychology. And we are all free to watch what is going on in ourselves. And then come up with it that way, what we mean by being self-centered or being caught up in self-reference, self-centered thinking. And to see what that is, not judge it. See, the difficulty with these words, particularly the word selfishness, is it has already implied in it a moral value which is low. We shouldn't be selfish. We should be altruistic. It's bad to be selfish. It's good to do things for others. And if we have already in our associations a negative value for a word like selfishness, how can we look at ourselves? Or if somebody told us we're selfish, how can we look? We already feel guilty about ourselves. And in feeling guilty about whatever, the mind closes up and protects itself, tries to protect itself from punishment, retribution, whatever. Right now in thinking about how did I first, as I remember it, come upon a very clear feeling of what is selfishness. The remembrance of sitting in a Zen center in which I was training during a time for meetings that was called Doksan in the Zen tradition, sitting in this Doksan line. And the way you were placed in that line was according to several unspoken criteria. Seniority was one. How long you'd been there, how well along you were in your koan work, and so forth. And I had for the longest time a certain seat, which was close to the door, very much easier to do that dash up the stairs if you're right close to the door, no one ahead of you. If you're not close to the door, then you have the feeling sometimes you take your life in your own hands. I was literally trampled over once when I wasn't sitting. Somebody threw me or walked over. Then there was a rule, women over 45 or over 40. There was only one at the time, or two. We were all a very young bunch. Not me. Could sit closer to the door. That was outside of retreat. During the retreat, I used to have that seat, and that was my seat in my mind. Close to the door, right close to the Roshi, able to swing right out of that door up the stairs, and the first one in line. And one time I didn't get that seat, somebody else got it. And I was sitting 2 seats behind 2 other people who were not there as long, etc. And it took quite a while until I realized that the mind was swinging back and forth between 2 different worlds. I can't put it any different, or 2 entirely different states. One was open, spacious, unconcerned, undivided, and the other one was like a narrow prison in which there was a bouncing back and forth between the anger over where I was put, the injustice, the idea, the nerve of people to put me there, and these other 2 of course always getting ahead of me, who were they, all of this kind of stuff. And also a dialogue with a seating coordinator. What did he have in mind to put me there? I was not a demanding person there. Well, I got everything. But this time I was going to put my demand in afterwards, like everybody else tried to, I thought. I said that in this echo chamber. Whether it was so or not, who knows? So there was an alternation of a narrow state in which one was just shaken back and forth between arguments, resentments, emotions. Always repetitive, always the same thing, nothing ever new. And then noticing this and the absurdity of it, and the mind opening up and being spacious, free, open, not concerned where one was sitting, where others were sitting. And the thought again, how am I going to get up there next time? And so a very clear, to this moment, the memory has preserved it, a very clear inner demonstration or visual, if you will, a video of the difference between a state of self-concern, my privilege, my position, my needs, my anger, my going to rectify this, and the others, an injustice, all of that, the narrowness of it, and the openness of no such thought and concern and self-reference. Nobody had to explain to me what it meant to have self-centered thoughts and what they do. It was clear. So how can our inner ongoings become transparent to us? So we don't have to adopt definitions of self or no self, but find out for ourselves. Also find out for ourselves that when there is no constant thinking about oneself and one's rights and privileges and needs and what is due one and so forth, it's not that one becomes dysfunctional. One is dysfunctional with this other. The openness can be active at the moment of needing to take action, seeing what needs to be done. It's free. So the idea that without a self we would disintegrate, I don't know what all ideas are around. Could we still function properly in daily life? Because the state isn't there all the time, it's there very rarely. But when it's there, it is the healthiest, most intelligent state, I think, that is possible for a human being. And out of it comes intelligent action, without a lot of dithering what is good for me and what is bad for me and mine. And in the other state, there's no room, no space, no freedom. Only the power of anger or the power of position. Intimidation or being intimidated. There's no wisdom can come out of this little tube in which I found myself, time and time again during this one day. It didn't come back. I think I exhausted that state. And being in that state is not blameworthy. We have this conventional morality with which we judge, and as though somebody was doing this and somebody could do better or know better. When it switched, it was the same organism sitting there. It was just that the energy was not traveling into that narrow circuit, beset with imagery and memory and anticipation and ideas. The energy need not travel in that circuit. How it can stay out of it, I don't know. But when it is out of it, it is gathered in listening here and now to the bird, the wind, people moving, the breath, and the distant hum of a motor. Maybe what we said earlier about activity, so much busyness, trying to weed the lawn and the flower beds hectically. That was that narrow tube, and doing it with attention, and the plane is there too. The narrow tube breaks up, and what is revealed is a whole universe of space and no time in which everything can take place fully, from beginning to end. Which doesn't mean this other circuit has been eradicated or obliterated, destroyed. One thought, particularly if it's very heavily emotionally laden with associations, can shoot the energy back into that circuit. And that's what we call being caught in a vortex. Somebody said, from vortex to vortex in my daily life. But the amazing and, let us even say, miraculous thing is that within the vortex, the spin can break open. And one can stop, look, and listen freshly, anew. First of all, to all the disturbances and agitation in the body, running, throbbing, tensing, all of that is there to be felt, but not to be judged, not to be fought or resisted. That's the first thing that comes, that manifests. It doesn't just come to mind, it comes to body. And then there are the birds and the sounds of people moving. There's breathing, which is not necessarily a practice. One can make it a practice, but the beauty of breath is that it is there. It is there in unfathomable ways if one listens to it freshly. Not knowing about breathing, but just listening, contacting, opening the body to what is happening. Every pore of the body seems to be breathing. And not away from those birds. So not to have any assumptions that one's daily life is one thing and retreat life is another. I have to do more retreats so that whatever all the assumptions are. Of course, retreat is a marvelous thing. But if there can't be, in the midst of a daily life vortex, a breaking up and stop looking and listening, then what use is it to spend quiet time away? other than, of course, vacationing, and that's maybe the best use that we can make of a retreat. Vacationing, meaning vacating everything. As one person said, hasn't been here to retreat for a long time, and said, amazing, I feel less compulsion that I have to sit. My daily life is full of compulsions, but at least here I don't feel it. Used to be there here too. When I came here, then I had to sit, I had to do a lot of this. But that seems to have fallen away. So if it can fall away here, the compulsion to sit, to attain, to become something, it can happen in our daily life too. If we wake up to this vortex of compulsive activity, the tensing of the hands and holding a pencil or holding a thistle. What will make us slow down to look and listen? Because it's possible at any time, if we wake up, if there's a waking up, a coming to, and not immediately judge what is seen. That's what usually happens, and then the wake up is over. We're asleep again with judging, coming down on ourselves for being bad, inattentive, etc. But there'll be another wake up, another coming to. And can that be simple? Austere, if you will. Bare, a bare being there. Not knowing what to do about this moment. Not knowing what to do about this moment of waking up. We find out there is nothing we need to do. Everything is there. Inside, outside. And what is it all if I don't immediately fall into the labeling? Labeling goes on, but I realize the label is not what is going on. It can't be labeled. It can't be divided and categorized. It's one whole whatever. We will end here for today.